Happy New Year to anybody watching this video, and in today's video we're going to talk about something that I'm sure a lot of Dragon Ball fans do not care about, but for the few of you who actually do care, we will talk about this to start the new year. And this is regarding a recent Dragon Ball interview that Toyotaro had discussing how they recently finished 100 chapters of Dragon Ball Super, and he basically just talked about a lot of his favorite things, and the things that he talked about were basically just his own fanboy favorites, and we didn't really get any direction of what's gonna happen with Dragon Ball Super in the future, which is why I feel like this was a very wasted interview, but you guys clicked to hear what Toyotaro basically said, so we're gonna talk about this. Now, one thing that Toyotaro said over the course of creating 100 chapters of Dragon Ball Super is that he's really admired Vegeta's growth, especially in the Granola arc. Now, thinking about it from Vegeta's growth, and thinking about the direction that Vegeta's growth has gone in through Dragon Ball history, what I would say is that the overwhelming weight of his character development was obviously in what we call Dragon Ball Z, mostly in the Android arc and in the Buu arc, because in the Android arc he had to swallow his pride against Cell to obviously help out Gohan, and then in the Buu arc, clearly that's like the most character development of Vegeta, because, he becomes a villain again, he redeems himself, becomes a family man in the end. And through all of that, that is where we truly see Vegeta's character evolve. And the thing about Dragon Ball Super is I don't really feel like Vegeta's character grew that much in Super. I just kind of feel like he's just incrementally just moving in the same direction that we already expected him to go in, where he's doing more things, like he's willing to actually train with Goku. He's a little bit more of a family man. He actually shows some mercy to Granola, whereas the OG Vegeta wouldn't have showed any at all. So I do feel like Vegeta has had incremental growth arc to arc, but since Dragon Ball Z, I really don't feel that much. And after this, Toyotaro then talks about who his favorite character in Dragon Ball is, and he said it's Goku. And I felt that that was a pretty simple answer. It's a pretty popular take, and he said that it's obviously based off of his design frequency, and he said that his favorite characters are generally what characters he draws the most, so because he has to draw Goku the most, Goku is his favorite character, and I thought that that was kind of like a boring cop-out answer, but to each his own. But he did say that his favorite overall design would have been Granola, because obviously he had so much influence in designing Granola's character. And overall, I would actually have to agree with Toyotaro on this. I think that Granola is definitely one of the cooler characters when you factor in his eye. He kind of has human Saiyan-like characteristics, but yet he's kind of his own thing. I feel like Granola is definitely cool, and especially how we also got a chance to see like the Ceruleans and how there's like a backstory between them and the Saiyans too. I think he's definitely one of the most unique characters, and was far more interesting of a character than Gas was. So I was pretty much in sync with Toyotaro on that, but one thing that Toyotaro said that I really feel like Dragon Ball fans will believe is a nothing burger is he talked about the fact that the most time he spent designing on anything or working in Dragon Ball would have been Granola's plane, because he really wanted it to be something unique, with that wing shape. And overall I was just like, wow, bro, it's okay looking, but I wouldn't have thought that the design for Granola's ship would have been that unique, that it would have taken that much time. It kind of has a relatively simplistic design to it, but when he said that he spent the most time working on that, that was definitely a big shock. And also, he was asked about his favorite storyline in the Dragon Ball Super manga out of the 100 chapters. And surprisingly and unsurprisingly, he said it was the one that he had before the superhero arc, which was essentially the prequel arc with Goten and Trunks, kind of doing all of those slice of life daily things. And I feel like because he had so much narrative direction and influence over it, it's kind of like he's positing himself into the Dragon Ball story instead of having other influences. And I can definitely understand that. He talked about in other interviews how he really worked on developing Trunks, and he tried to give Trunks his own unique character and direction. So I can definitely understand why Toyotaro would have chosen that for the favorite ones. Now, objectively, I don't really think that that storyline is anything really memorable. I do think it was unique in the fact that we got a chance to see Goten and Trunks get older and kind of see them have their own unique lives, which is very different from what we saw at the end of Z when they were basically just adults, or in Goten's case he was 17, but they were pretty much older and they hadn't really shown any interest in fighting. But this version of Goten and Trunks still kind of have like that desire to fight, as opposed to what we saw at the end of Z. So I also feel like it's a unique twist, because at the end of Z, when you consider the fact that Goten and Trunks were effectively supposed to be retiring characters because the series was coming to an end, obviously if you're writing Dragon Ball with the intent to continue the show, you can write Goten and Trunks differently in Dragon Ball Super in a way that's going to keep them more active, at least as side characters, so I can definitely understand why that changed. Now, he was also asked what his favorite fight was, and he said that it would have to be Goku versus Moro. That was his favorite battle, and I think that this is a pretty simple answer that a lot of Dragon Ball fans would agree to, because I think for the most part we would agree that at least when it comes to Dragon Ball Super story, the Moro arc is clearly the best storyline that we've had in Dragon Ball Super. Now, clearly you can make an argument for other things. I feel like if we're just talking and combining the manga and the anime as like one full story with separate elements and like ranking like the manga version of this versus the anime version of this, and like you're combining both of them in once, I would say that the Moro arc is generally the best, even though it doesn't have an anime adaptation. I personally feel like the Trunks, or shall I say the Zamasu arc, is the best arc of Dragon Ball Super's anime. And I feel like the Tournament of Power had the best fight scenes, but in terms of actual story, I feel like Moro arc would definitely have to be the best. And he talked about how, you know, he enjoyed certain things with like the Susanoo Goku versus Moro, and how Moro was merging with the Earth, and there was a lot of really cool elements that really took place in that battle, so I can definitely understand where he was coming from with that. And he also talked about the fact that he enjoyed, you know, the whole secret at the end where Oob donated his energy to help out in the battle against Moro, and even he enjoyed the secret with the Granola arc, keeping Black Frieza in, where he basically just shows up and he kills Elec and Gas, and, you know, we're basically left on a massive cliffhanger as to whether or not we'll ever see Black Frieza again. But that's besides the point. He talked about some of the secrets that he had planned, lined up, and it is good to know that he had these things planned, because they definitely were shocking. And he said that Dragon Ball really didn't have that many secrets since the anime, so in a lot of ways I kind of look at that Oob scene against Moro, or panel I should say, and it reminds me a lot of the Cell games where Gohan was fighting against Cell in the Beam Clash, and at the very end you see that Vegeta had actually helped out by blasting Cell and he got over his pride. But at the same time it shouldn't have been too shocking, because if you're looking at it from the anime first, you could see that Vegeta was like powering up and like the others were helping out in the anime, so it wouldn't have been that shocking. But overall it was a similar type of scene, like where one secret character comes in and helps at the very last second. Now, he talked about a few other things here that you guys probably really don't care about, but he said his favorite color was Volume 19, where like you see Goku's family in parallel to Bardock's family. I think the artwork on this was pretty cool. And one other thing that he said that he liked is his favorite line in Dragon Ball Super, and this shocked me. It really did, because he said that his favorite line was Master Roshi, and his line in the Tournament of Power where he was basically just, you know, trying to give Goku advice. Like, he still maintained his status as Goku's master throughout all of this, and was talking to Goku and, you know, talking about him about, you know, strength isn't everything, even though it really is, because, let's be honest, like, a person like Master Roshi shouldn't be able to even fight in the Tournament of Power. Like, he should be so slow and so weak that, like, his punches would, like, tickle his opponents, but that's besides the point. You know, Roshi was, you know, basically just trying to get the best out of Goku with it, and, I mean, he goes out fighting Jiren in a way that nobody expected him to, and I feel like, you know, I didn't think of it as like a big, deep line. I feel like there are others that if we really sat and gave a bunch of time thinking about other really cool lines that would have been better than this, but it's Toyotaro's opinion, and to each his own. And overall, guys, I would say for this interview that it really didn't feel, you know, that worthy of our time, but I do understand that some of you would care to hear about this, so that's why I talked about it in today's video. But overall, nobody really cares about what Toyotaro thinks. Some probably do, and for the some of you out there, this video was for you.